for being here. I always want to thank especially FAT TV for helping us out by being here. So the meeting's been called to order. Let's do a quick round of introductions. We do this always because there are people in the community who might watch later who might not know who everyone is. So I think I'm going to start this direction, Andy, with you.
Andy Haas, Superintendent of Schools.
Liz Hardy, Principal at Westminster Center Schools.
Margie Ferry, Westminster Board. Ian BLC, Westminster Board.
Cheryl Charles, Westminster Board.
Paula Warcup, kindergarten teacher. Emily Leaside, fifth and sixth grade teacher.
Jenny Harry, school counselor.
And Stacy Illingworth, leading interventions.
Outstanding. And then on the screen, go ahead, other school board members. Karen.
Karen Blanchard, Westminster School Board.
Thank you so much for joining. And even many more hours away, Mr. Hutchinson.
Hi, I'm Charlie Hutchinson in España. Vice Chairman of the school Westminster School Board.
Right.
in
Thank
Spain.
you so much. So we have actually all the school board members here, even though two are out of the country. So we thank you especially for being here. And then Mr. Bazina, introduce yourself, please.
Jim Bazina, helping out with finance.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. So with that, those of you who are remote on mute, unless you're going to be speaking, I'd say go ahead and mute your computers right now. And let me see if there are any adjustments to the agenda. Jim, I'll suggest one. Under new business, we have preparation for town meeting. We also have the announced tuition rate. I wonder if we might move the tuition rate up, since that would be right after the budget presentation, and that might
Okay.
free you up.
Sure,
All
that
right,
sounds
so
good.
With your permission, we'll make that move. 8A will become 8B and vice versa. Now let's call for any communications and public comments, if there are any.
Let's see, Nate.
I see none as well. All right, with that, we have two sets of minutes to approve, the minutes from December 7 and the minutes from the special meeting on December 12. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All right, that's team, moving to approve the minutes. Any discussion? I have no corrections on the minutes of December 7. On December 12, there's a section where it refers to $150,000, and there should be a clarification that that was voter approved to reduce the 2025 budget. So some small amendment to clarify that reference to the $150,000 in the minutes from the December 12 meeting.
There is also the word bade as opposed to made, which is, I think, on page 3 or something like that.
That's true. I think, as practice, we don't try to fix all the typos. But
That's fine. That's fine. Just wanted to mention.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw that too. But I do think the substantive clarification to indicate to people what that was about, the 150 does help to bring down the budget in 2025, approved by the voters to do so at town meeting. So with that one correction, let's take it to a vote. Karen, how do you vote on approval of minutes with the correction?
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you. Charlie?
I vote yes.
Margie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and me too. So minutes unanimously approved as corrected. And with that, we're really excited to have a whole team here with us tonight. So with that, I think Liz, you'll start out the reports.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
I'll start with my principal's report, sure. So holding steady at our average daily attendance of 95%, which has been really awesome all year. On Monday, we'll start our winter sports season. Students in grades kindergarten and first grade will head to Vermont Academy for skating. Students in grades 2 through 6 have a choice of skiing or snowboarding at Okemo, swimming at D'Agremay, or staying on campus for winter adventure, which would include, outdoor games, sport making, exploring Evans Woods, all sorts of outside time. So this year we have about 55 students heading to Okemo, 32 will be swimming, and 13 have signed up for winter adventure. Next week will be our second round of the universal assessment, the DIBELS that we talked about a few months ago. As was explained, this is an assessment that staff use to create instructional groupings and to guide their instruction, and it's proven really helpful. Our winter concert will be in a few weeks, January 18th, starting at 6:30, doors open at 6:15. We're looking forward to that. We have moved to semesters, so our report card will be coming out February 9th, and we'll shift it to running report cards through our Power School system. Staff are really excited about this, and it's allowed the report writing process to be more streamlined and visually more appealing, definitely. We have our half day next week. Students will be dismissed 11:45, and we'll be continuing the work that our ILT team will present in a few minutes. And this is following the same structure that we've been following all year, where staff will meet in professional learning communities, discuss the recent strategy that they've been trying for the past month, and then we'll all as a whole staff engage in another episode of our professional development around explosive instruction through Anita Archer. The storm drain in the driveway, Bill, Steve Horton and I met today with GZA Engineering. We look forward to the report that we'll receive in the next few weeks with suggestions on how we could potentially remedy the situation and cost associated with that. Earlier this year, food services received the Healthy Meals Incentive Grant. Westminster received a small portion of that. The grant was quite large, I think over $100,000, but we received maybe around 25,000. We'll use these funds to create a small outdoor cooking space by the garden to process the food that we're growing out there. We will also be ordering an 18 by 30 greenhouse, and this will be used for extending the growing season, starting seeds in the spring, and just a companion space for outdoor and nature-based learning. Are there any questions?
Pretty exciting.
Yeah, lots of exciting stuff.
No, right in time, I think.
I know. It'll be great.
Why don't you then introduce the?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So starting last year, the instructional leadership team has been meeting twice a month. We definitely have a dream team of a staff, and I'm so fortunate to work with this small group of staff through the process that we have learned from Focus Schools. And I'm just really proud and excited for the opportunity for our ILT team to share tonight. We've been through a really wonderful journey that we're really proud of.
Great, I'm up first. I do want to echo what you're saying, Liz, and say that we really honored Westminster as a staff and prioritize things that make us who we are. So it's felt really wonderful to go through a process which is really in line, aligned with who we are. So we came up with this idea that comprehension is writing the story. If students learning,
Be in control.
I don't know, whatever. If teaching comprehension is writing the story, then we as teachers have to first sharpen our pencils. So we've been very intentional about spending time as a staff, as Liz said, learning and having professional development experiences together, so that we could better our teaching and sharpen our pencils and teaching skills. So thank you, Emily. So we arrived pretty early on what our our targeted learning focus was. What WCS commits to building comprehension through intentional lesson structure, language, and reflective practices. And a goal that would be that 100% of Westminster Center School students show growth in reading comprehension as measured by DIBELS and other K-6 assessments. So we wanted to be inclusive in that. DIBELS is our primary measure of growth, but we wanted to make sure that we didn't eliminate other important measures. So this has been a long process of understanding, and it's been interesting to navigate it alongside other schools. We meet at the district level as well. So we are learning from other schools in the district, as well as presenting some of the really wonderful things that we've done. And it's been a really long process. But as I said, I think that we've honored ourselves so well. We did struggle at first to make sure and direct our learning and let curiosity, engagement, inquiry, and drive what we did. And originally we thought perhaps we were drawn to SEL things and wanted to on our, the whole child. But anyway, so we had to kind of navigate ourselves and make sure that our focus target would have a measurable data point, and that would include and impact all students and across all learning areas. So that was vital, because as now a school counselor, I want to make sure that I feel like I can make an impact with regard to comprehension, as well as Pat and PE, as well as Miss S and music. So we wanted it to be really holistic. We used Hattie's list of effective practices to guide our work.
So, along with what Jenny was just saying about it's been a very long process, and we as a team kept feeling like we have to come back and be like, okay, so what does this mean? What are we working on? It would make sense in the meeting, and then we'd get back to our small group and go, okay, did we really learn what we were doing? And so then as we started to run that list to staff, we realized we were always one step ahead of them, and we had to really want that for our staff. So when we go to our staff and say, okay, this is what we want to do, we had to remember they didn't know what we were talking about either. We barely knew what we were talking about for the first few meetings. But then we get to this really exciting part where how do we make this long targeted learning focus that commits to building comprehension through intentional lesson structure, language, and reflective practices? How do we make this real for our staff? How do we make this real eventually for our students and our school community? And part of that process is coming up with a slogan. And we had a ton of fun in one of our PE days, one of our staff meetings, where we led some of this learning. And here's, sort of where we centered on these words, WCS, where we wanted to create and share. Eventually down the road, perhaps kids will be part of creating what the visual is for that. We were concerned about, the buy-in, and does this feel like one more new thing? And is it something that our SU will have with some longevity, or will it be the other and have something new to focus on? And then we slowed down our process, like our WCS process, and said, no matter what happens in our SU, we know committing to this will make us better teachers and will help all of our students. So we are committed to this, no matter what happens. And I think bringing that idea to the staff really helped with that and that comfort level. And the all means all. We're all working towards this.
Could I add, can't see if you could raise your voice a little bit,
Sorry.
so people online can hear it.
Yep.
So I think that everybody's talked about the struggle that we had, and we would go to these district ILT meetings and be like, I mean, I can just personally say, we'd start off and kind of remember what we did before, and I'd be like, I seriously don't understand this again. So that struggle, I think, helped us slow down a lot for our staff. So we decided last year as a team that we were going to take time to build community, because we have a lot of new teachers. We wanted to ensure that all staff were included in this, not just classroom teaching staff. And we wanted to create shared professional development experiences that we could then implement as a staff, and that would later on lead us to. So I think though the slowing down piece really felt really good. So now we're engaged in specific professional development to enhance our teaching skills that then lead to better instruction.
And just one thing, this framework that you're seeing, I'm not sure if Liz, you've ever, I don't think talked about Freon. So this framework comes from what we've been working on with Brett Bishop and Focus Schools, and sort of a piece of the process that we've been going through the Focus framework. So you'll see a few highlighted during this particular presentation. So Focus Framework 2, empowering teams to facilitate a cycle of improvement. This is really what we planned last year and then are implementing this year. Something that our staff, through the process that we worked through with our staff, really highlighted and valued was reflective practice. And our process of PD just feels so good this year. Every staff is engaged, everybody's ready, everybody's getting something from it. We leave our PD days feeling fulfilled instead of feeling worn out or, okay, but I can't work on that tomorrow. That's too much for me. We are using it for our staff and everybody's getting something from it. So it's just this great feeling in our school. So staff really feel that they have autonomy to choose the strategy that they're working on, which helps for everyone to be involved. We choose what we're working on for the following month. And then we get that second exposure through that PLC and that discussion. We work on it through the month. And then in our small PLCs, we have that discussion that people can really have that second exposure of reflection. How did I work on this and hear how other people worked on?
Only if I could just
Yeah.
insert for the public for a minute, PLC, professional learning community, right?
Yes.
Okay, and PD is professional development. You've been saying that.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
So our next framework slide is utilize an internal system for measuring growth towards goals and outcomes. And this year, we have really worked on collecting data, sharing data, discussing data, using in our data that were measured, that we use for measurable growth. There are maps, DIGGLES, classroom rubrics, and formative assessments. We have weekly team meetings that we're discussing, as well as monthly data meetings with Deb Pardane to discuss data. And another thing that we've added is that I know I mentioned this the last time, this panorama where we're putting in intervention plans in there that's visible to all classroom teachers, administrators. So that's kind of where we are. We've been really doing a great job this year looking at data, discussing data and students and looking at students to work.
So the next focus area is commit to a targeted learning focus that is understood and embraced by all. Emily spoke to this a little bit, and as did Paula, but part of that was the buy-in, the commitment by all staff, and we had some growing pains at first, I think, to figure out how to present it in a way that didn't feel like one more thing. So we having that commitment and having collaborative experiences, because we are someone who has several years or more of experience. You know, these discussions and
The
practices
volume is going in and out. I only want to say that the volume is going in and out. That's all. Thank you.
Move it closer. You gotta talk towards the eye.
Okay. Oh, I usually don't.
I know, we're all used to moving around, and that's what creates a lot of that, so.
Oh.
Well, let me do this.
Oh, so these important discussions, as someone who has taught comprehension for a while, it was really helpful to have discussions with colleagues that were classroom teachers and non-classroom teachers. It was a good reminder, oh yes, or you're reaffirming, I do that already, or I haven't thought about that in 10 years. And so these real valuable discussions and shared experiences have provided such value to our staff, and again really enhances the how meaningful our PD sessions have been. Let's see. So we've been able to develop common practice and vocabulary and implementation throughout the year. We've started from many views about what our target should be to really people fully being in support of comprehension, being at the forefront of what we're focusing on. Let's see. And yeah, so we're just going to continue to work on commonalities and building that common language and shared experiences to move forward with our learning focus.
So F6 is implement a small set of evidence-based practices that support the ongoing progress of all staff, students, and stakeholders. Sounds really big. So this year, after this year, we're gonna create a one-pager that kind of gives a blueprint for how we engage students and how we support comprehension. throughout the whole school. It's kind of, it'll end up being like just the way we teach in Westminster. And that will be created with all staff, with all the information that we're gaining through our PD, through our professional development. But we are seeing, it's really interesting, we see the kinds of things that we're learning in our professional development happening in classrooms when we walk around. I know you've talked about seeing it everywhere. When we come back together in our professional learning communities, we are all talking about the things that we're doing and learning from each other. So it's already happened. It's already happening, but eventually it'll just be a really clear one pager that people can look at and pick strategies to implement engagement for students.
Just one thing I wanted to know, our students are seeing what I do in my classroom also in their classroom,
Yeah.
like students are making connections between other teachers because we're all practicing and working with them. Yeah, okay, so this is, this year Brett introduced the data inquiry cycle. And if you look at the center, all means all. At Westminster, we have all staff on board and all looking at data. We've been invested in implementing our instructional practices from our professional development and reflecting on these practices as they mentioned in our professional learning communities. This cycle is designed to be continuous. So as you can see, number 1 is identifying a challenge, and you can move around this cycle, but at number 7, when you are accessing impact and making adjustments, you're going to make those adjustments, but then you're going to relook at that adjustment. Was there another challenge there? So it's designed to be continuous. It is, we also use this in our ILT meetings where we add what are challenges we're having and adjusting and brainstorming next steps using this cycle.
So this is a graphic that Brett shared with us, and it starts most of our ILT meetings, just a reminder of where we are and where we are going. So you can see some of the things to the left that we have already worked on, really just first identifying what the ILT is, what the committee really means, what is our targeted learning focus, and what are evidence-based practices. Then we worked on developing our professional development plan, which we're implementing right now. That's what I was talking about when we're feeling so good right there. And so the next phase, next 3 phases are really that fidelity of implementation, where we move forward with our 1-pager and we see this growth across all of our students in the area of comprehension.
Number of acronyms is in.
Oh, yeah, it is. And
Oh, I think I'm jumping in here now.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we have a pencil case. And we feel that as teachers, as you can see, we have different colors here, right? And we are all unique as teachers. We've sharpened our pencils. We're in that process of sharpening our pencils to create a toolbox of skills that will help engage in our students' learning.
Well, thank you for the
Unless you didn't jump in
presentation.
anyway. We got- Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where you want us to go.
Well, let's open it up to questions.
I don't know if you'll need to flip back or you want to go back to the full screen.
Let's open it up so the audience can.
Sure.
And we may need to move the owl perhaps so that everybody can be heard. But again, first of all, our thanks. We're delighted to have you all here and to talk with us about this in person. I'm sure the board members will have questions. I've got some, but let me just open it up.
Do the professional development days happen spread out throughout the year?
There are those half days.
Those are the half days that we've been doing. That's when we're doing the PD here at our school.
But we're also doing the district-wide, SU-wide.
15 is. Those happen throughout, like once a month, we have our SU-wide ILT meeting after school. But the PD that we're talking about happens on those half days. Yeah.
And also sometimes for like a quick 10-minute clip during staff meeting.
Oh, yeah,
So like
yes.
that's twice a month more, so we're getting it a lot.
Yeah.
So if I could just add in, one of the things we committed to at SU level was early release days would be given to the schools with fidelity. We've only broken that once, I think. But to allow them to have that time. So we're not, it's building driven for the early release days. And then we've tried to establish the professional development days. So that there's opportunities there for them to continue, keep doing some of this work. And then they have the ILT work. So there's a lot of time for them to meet, but it's driven by what the needs are at each building.
I hate that as a parent, but I do think it probably is better for, because you're constantly touching on it and building on it instead of like the beginning of the year and the end of the year or right before breaks when everybody's like, see ya.
Well, we're just talking about that, how it's like, you get this like little nugget of information, try it out, talk about it, another nugget. Try it out, talk about it, and it's like this kind of perfect system that we have going. I get it, that half days are not ideal.
Yeah,
But it really seems to give us just a little bit more time than a staff meeting.
yeah, it's better for you.
And there's that built-in accountability piece, because it is so easy to get busy with your daily goings on, right? And to know that I'm gonna be having a conversation with 6 of my colleagues about what strategies I was using is really helpful to have that embedded in it. And we provide our students with consistency and with, transparency and clear expectations, right? So doing that same thing for us and having the opportunity to know, okay, this is not going anywhere. This is not a fleeting opportunity or like next big thing. We're in this and it's already established for the year. We can trust that it's built in for us and that we can continue to work on it throughout the year and beyond. So for me, that is a really valuable piece of those consistent meetings.
Right.
It's just the predictability and.
I appreciate that your goal is, has to do with growth of students rather than so often it's like 10% rise in proficiency rates, which is so. Like, doesn't really match anything, so it's nice that it's 100% for like most students. So is the one pager, the one pager, that's something that will help with like, when you onboard new staff, that'll be something that we.
Yes.
And for us too, as reminders, because like you said, it's easy to,
Oh,
we've talked about strategy, I probably did 10 years ago, and then it just kind of makes it up. That actually works.
Would you give an example of a strategy teachers have used that they like? This is not for my own selfish purposes.
Well, something as simple as a think, pair, share, right?
Oh,
Like I've been using think, pair, share since 2000, right? Early 2000s. But now, as a seasoned teacher, talking about it, revisiting it, I'm using it with so much more intention. I'm thinking as I'm lesson planning, where do I need my students to use that strategy? Instead of just throwing it in, oh, this would be think, pair, share. It's something as simple as that, but with intention.
And I feel like our students are becoming better conversers, right? They have greater accountability as well, because they're going to be responsible for speaking in a pair and then sharing what Stacy's going to say or there's just a higher level of engagement and, a result of higher engagement ideally, or will be comprehension. So yeah, having it in many different settings is reinforcing that throughout the day.
Others that I've seen a lot are just the increases of whiteboards, like writing it down and showing rather than not. Or a queuing system, that's a big one that a lot of people have used, like a hand cue or a vocal, like to get everyone's attention to move on. Those are,
A lot of it is engagement, right?
Yeah.
Which will lead to comprehension, right? I think that's the piece for me, the engagement piece and accountability.
And what, Jean?
And I'll put myself with them.
Let me see, Karen, did you have any comments or questions? Oh, maybe you have to put yourself, you're on mute. Unmute yourself, Karen.
Yes, I shall. It may be a sign of my ignorance, but when you showed the very first circle and there was a face in the middle, is that a mascot?
our current mascot.
It's our Viking mascot.
Yeah.
I heard there's been some questions. Right.
Viking mascot. It occurred to me that it would be nice at some time to have a Viking of a different gender, maybe. There were Vikings, there were women Vikings. So I'm only thinking, the other is that particular picture of a Viking, I'm just saying this, I know we can't change them right now, but I'm not so sure it indicates those three that values around it. That's all I wanted to say, is that there are different faces of Vikings. And that's all I want to say. I know it takes a whole village to change it, but I knew it was the Viking, but I didn't see the picture before, I don't think. Okay, that's my only comment. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Yeah, Karen, actually, that's just our current mascot right now, and I pulled that graphic off of the website. But eventually, the logo that might go with the saying where we wonder, create, and share, that would be created by students. That would be a school initiative where they might work together. What would be the graphic that would meet this logo?
Right, and then.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen, for the comment and the question. It's highly relevant at this time. Andy, go ahead and speak
Yeah,
on that.
so Karen, it's funny that you bring that up. So just prior to our break here in December, I met with the 6th grade class and discussed the policy around mascots and posed the question, does the current mascot violate the given policy that has been enacted by the SU, but also by the state of Vermont? And so the students, as you talk about think, pair, share and stuff like that. So as I'm coming in, there was a time when I said, hey, can you turn to a partner? I want you to, and boom, the kids just, so it's something I just saw just in that little brief time that I was here. So they knew exactly. So I see the spread. Cool. So those students will be coming, or a portion of that class will be coming to the board here with their recommendation around, does the mascot fit the policy? And if it does, then we can have a discussion about what does that mascot look like. And then the second one is, if it doesn't, then what are the next steps? So it's in process right now, but it's part of that whole creativeness and sharing fits in with what you're doing. So perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarification.
Highly relevant. Thank you. Charlie, I think you might want to make a comment or ask a question.
No, I'm just impressed by the intensity and the collaboration that's going on, of the work that's going on. So I'm sort of interested, maybe you already asked, somebody already asked this question, but what typically would be on this one, this one sheet, one pager? What kind of things are going to be on there exactly? I'm not sure if that's what Teen already asked or not, but so maybe you already answered it. Is it? Yes.
One example of the reflect, pair, and share, but there might be another to help bring that to life. Yeah.
So I suppose clearly this is going to be the distillation of a huge number of years of your collective experience. So somebody coming in new, these things are helpful, but they don't make them a good teacher, of course. So it's still going to require a huge amount of coaching and so on to get a new person up to speed, obviously, isn't it? I think you just said, Emily, at the beginning of your career, you do things very differently than you do 20 years later. But how broadly useful do you think this one page is going to be?
I think it would be part of the onboarding process and serve as a blueprint of how we teach here, so that if you're not familiar with specific strategies, you have a list of strategies that are widely known and used in the building that you could talk to your mentor about in the building or talk to your teammates to get caught up. But of course, as all new staff would engage in a level of coaching and support as needed.
Do you see this sort of identifying Westminster, sort of putting not a mark in the ground, but putting a stake in the ground, saying this is who we are, this is how we do things, and exactly. The rest of the world can look and see, compare themselves.
I think it will also be really helpful when we have our professional learning community discussions where we're problem solving with each other, and we'll be able to look at that one pager and say, oh, well, have you thought about trying this strategy for this particular problem? And it'll be a reminder in that case. I think additionally, it might also define what we believe comprehension is here at Westminster. That was a huge discussion, a huge process for us to go through, because although we might measure our reading comprehension, we know comprehension is shown in so many other ways. So how could these strategies be used, say in PE or art, if it's not directly connected to a reading piece? So I just really think it'll help clarify and give that baseline of what we all know and use.
Good. Well, I admire the work that's going into this. So thank you all for doing that.
Excellent, thank you. Just a couple of structure questions from me. The instructional leadership team, is it the 4 of you or the and Liz?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're the team and you meet twice a month. And then you have the data meetings once a month where you take a deep dive into what's going on with each student, right? With all the metrics you have and you use Panorama for that. And then you also mentioned team meetings that were weekly. Who are in the team meetings? So those
A
are
grade level.
Okay.
Meetings, yes.
Okay, so so where we have one teacher at a grade level, like 6th grade.
They're multiple, so like K2.
Okay. Okay, that's sense. And then, you know, I'm just so appreciative of your attitude around it, and that it doesn't surprise me at all that you want it to be real. Right? You wanted it to be, it's not like make work, thank you very much, and it's not yet another thing that we're supposed to be doing. Is there any sense of this constraining anybody's creativity? You know, because you're getting a common vocabulary and you're using some practices that everybody is working on together. Any of that, or is it just super helpful? It gives you a structure within which you can be.
I also think people are choosing, you know,
Yeah,
when
right.
we learn a new evidence-based practice, people are choosing what they want to practice. So it isn't, there are options within that, so people can practice something maybe they aren't good at it or something they want to learn. So in the one pager, there would be more than one option, which I help. So I'm not sure that that was stifling.
And I think our process though really helped it not to feel that way. We had this whole other presentation we had to do for the district ILT team. And we kind of described it as a dumpster fire when we were trying to present this and like, what are we going to do? And because we as a team didn't just say, hey, everyone, we're going to focus on comprehension. Here we go. Here's the slogan. This is what we're doing. We chose to pull back from that. Not all schools did. That was what was going to work for us. And I think that by intentionally slowing down, by being really honest with our staff, really transparent.
About the struggle we were
Yeah.
having, right, with this
Yeah.
process, this process was hard to go through, actually. And one day we just sat there and on the staff and said that we're confused and this is really challenging, and every time we go, it's challenging, we kind of talk through that process. And I think
But
that
boiled down to, we all want to be the best teachers that we can be. We all want our students to be able to do this. And where do we go from here? And that's how we built this process. So I think had we done it a different way, there could be feelings of constraint, but because of the process, that's why.
Thank you.
I also think when Stacy was saying, like, she said, kids will say, like, they see what you're doing is the same as what someone else is doing. I think, like, that is so important for kids, because they don't, like, moving from one teacher to another, they often have to code shift, and they don't have to do that. So it, like, frees up their mind to, like, be able to think deeper, because they're not trying to figure out another routine that a different teacher has. It's different from, oh, I do this in this classroom and this in this classroom. Like, they know it's the same, so they can think about the actual learning that's going on, not the like routine. I think so. I appreciate that.
Yes.
No, some of our best conversations, I feel, were about how we assess comprehension. Because many of us think comprehension is a reflection of our knowledge of reading, or, you know, what, but Scott is analyzing comprehension in art when he gives directions. If a student is, so it was really neat to think about all the facets of how students demonstrate to us that they have an understanding of something. And that was really, I feel like that was a turning point in the relevance of this project too, or yeah, this year. But it was because originally there was a little pushback in that dumpster fire meeting of like, we're I don't teach comprehension, why this isn't real, it doesn't
Even
have,
our school nurse
yeah.
is using different strategies for kids when they explain their pain and understanding, different elements.
So really like the stuff the school nurse is sending on the.
Oh, I know.
Sorry, that's a
Yeah.
different topic,
She's
but I was
awesome.
like, all her tables, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, it's great.
It's very helpful.
So Cheryl, if I may just, because it's been mentioned a couple of times, and I think it's really important in education, when we look at test scores or we see student outcomes, and they're not great, and we know that. But we know that you can't just turn it on a dime, and it takes time, and you have to build capacity. And you all have said it numerous times to slow down, right? Go slow to go fast. We feel like we have to have a quick fix and just do something to say we've done it and then move on, and that's gonna somehow fix it. It's the long game that we're trying to play here. And I heard you say it, and I understand where you're coming from. Like, if the SU decides to go in a whole nother direction, this is here to stay. And that was the intention of doing the ILTs, was to give the ownership of direction back to buildings. So buildings start directing where they need to go, and not just a principal, but a collaboration, because it's an ownership piece, right? And we need everybody on board to do it. And so I appreciate what you're saying, because that's exactly was the intention, whether it was articulated well or not, but that was the intention of doing it. And I think honestly, I can say where we were coming out of COVID, because we were using focus schools out of that, I don't know if we fully embraced like, oh, this is where we want to end up, as we started to unpack this, and we kind of said, here, we're doing this, which was the dumpster fire. Everyone went, hey, what? But there was that intentionality of trying to move forward long term. So thank you very much.
We would enjoy staying much longer with you. I suspect that you can leave us unless there are any additional comments or questions. But again, our thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. All righty. Now we need to go to the budget. You're welcome to stay.
It's a session.
Absolutely.
This way to make sure. It's everybody.
Good, so.
Margie, I'm gonna need.
I know, I'm like watching you do that, being like,
So, the topic, unfinished business, is the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25. And we've had numerous meetings. We had one in-depth meeting on December 12th about it. I think one way we could proceed is to actually entertain a motion to approve the proposed budget in the amount of $5,366,000 for fiscal year 25, and then we can simply get into questions and discussion about it.
Well, I propose we accept the budget as written. I propose such, as long as it just with an aside. I have a question about if there's something missing, but does that come later?
In discussion, that would be fine. Right now, just to put a
Okay.
motion on the floor allows us to have the discussion, and we can go.
I don't know why I didn't think of this at the very beginning, but the idea that knowing the announced tuition be helpful during part of this discussion.
I liked also seeing, comparing our costs to other schools. Like when we briefly brought that up at that last meeting, how and that's just helpful, because otherwise I feel like I'm in a vacuum.
I guess Margie, I mean, maybe comparing one line item or something, but the numbers of students, the numbers of 6th or 7th graders coming out of our school may be quite different than the other schools that we're talking about. So I'm trying to figure out if it's apples and oranges or whether it's apples. So that's my only response.
We pulled up a thing that had the per student cost.
I get
And
you. So the first,
I was just,
I'll get you. I got you.
I'd like to see.
But I think Karen's got a good point, because when we say per student, we're talking about per K through 6 students, but we include the cost of 6th and 7th and 8th grade students. So that can vary from town to town.
Well, that's actually one of the things I wanted to bring up today, and I don't know, are we just in discussion now?
Yes.
Okay. I, and you talked about this last time, Charlie. I feel like a lot of the budget, we don't, some of the biggest parts of our budget, we can't control.
That's correct.
But the thing that we do control and that changes our bottom line a lot, it's not the budget, it's the number of students. So you have your number of students and then you have your budget total and you divide one into the other to see what our per student cost is. So the higher number of students you have, the lower the cost per student will be. And I was just thinking about, like, you know, we heat the whole building. Having more students doesn't change that. So
Makes it warmer, really.
it makes it warmer, yeah. No, but I was thinking, like, should it be on the table that we talk about potentially having 7th and 8th grade here again? Taking in those 2 grades, I mean, it would be more staff, but that would increase our number of students. And then that would change the variables a little bit. One thought that I had, clearly not for this budget currently, but that was one thought that's in my head. Another question I had was, do we divide in the preschool numbers also? Is that included in our,
Preschool budget line is in there, yes.
but those number of
No,
students, are they in our student, like the total number of students?
No,
No, because isn't that part of what we pay to the district?
But
your assessment, yeah.
But are the, like, you know, 13 kids?
Is that part of the 154?
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know, that's a good.
because it should be, because we're paying. It's a line item in here.
Right, and it, well, they're.
No. It's
Part of
not-
the SU assessment. Yeah.
There are
But-
two things, they're two different things. So a pre-K classroom in a building
Yeah,
that's run by the SU
yeah,
is different than the pre-K line item in your budget, which is money that's going out to private institutions. So.
but there's a line item in here that is paying for just our SU costs.
So it's part of your SU assessment, yes.
Yeah, yeah. But so then why can't we take that number of kids and put it into our total number?
Because they're not necessarily your students.
We can't count them in our.
They're, because
Because that's all. the
Jim,
students
can you
who go to
unpack this a little
pre-K.
bit more? Pre-K students as part of your announced tuition.
I just want to say, Andy, the state, which I disagree with, of course, they keep the pre-K separate. In other words, in what they show and all of the statistical analysis of costs for education, pre-K is not in it. And even their revenue that they give us is separated entirely.
That was what my gut was gonna tell me, but I wanted Jim to say it with, because I knew he would have it with fidelity, but so because everything's not mandated that buildings offer pre-K yet.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were at that point, if the state said you must offer pre-K in your building, then you would count them as part of your announced tuition.
But we're paying for a classroom and heating it. And you know what I mean? Like that could be a 7th grade classroom.
And if
We don't.
you said you were going to have a 7th grade classroom here and you didn't have room for pre-K.
Which I wouldn't want to do. I'm not
But-
saying I want to do it.
So just to play
Theoretically.
this out, and I've had this conversation at the high school level, I've had it at other places, the SU cannot own any property. The
Mhm.
SU can only borrow or rent.
Mhm.
And so therefore, if you said, you know, if Liz came to me and said, or the board came to me and said, there's no more room at the inn,
Mhm.
we would have to find room somewhere else. Whether we put it in another one of our buildings within our SU, or we would have to go out and rent a facility. or we'd have to close it. So we'd have to make those decisions, because we're only borrowing that space.
Well, maybe we should charge you rent then.
You could charge us rent, but all that's gonna do is increase your
Our
assessment.
assessment,
So
A little bit.
we had a conversation at the high school level, so that's why we're okay to, like, that's part of your assessment, and I think that's what people tend to not understand with the SU assessment, what comes with it. So special education, yes, we have a classroom with a specified programming in this building that's not offered in all of them, right? But that's part of the assessment that you pay into. And if you were to charge, we want to charge an extra $10,000 for use of that classroom, we would then have to increase our cost, which would just increase your assessment. So.
Right. That's
Yeah, I
right.
was tongue in cheek. I was tongue in cheek, but just
I understand.
to clarify, when I said that the cost per student is calculated only on K through 6, was that incorrect? Do we calculate K through 8 when we do cost per student? The number of students K through 8 or K through 6?
6.
You're right now, your offering is K through 6.
No, I understand
Even
that. But
though-
when we're calculating how much it costs per student in our budget, are we dividing by the K through 6 students or the
K
K
through
8
6,
students?
because you're pulling all of your tuition costs out of the calculation.
Oh, are you? I see. Okay.
Yes.
So I see.
Will you remind me,
so-
Jim, what's the percent increase on this budget?
It's 4%.
4%, which is actually low, extremely low.
Especially given everything else going on in the state. And when we subtract the $150,000 that the voters approved, it would be a 1%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with the budget.
Yeah.
I'm totally happy with the budget. I'm just saying, like, what's his name last year? Who came to our informational session? I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, Dan, that's.
Dan, exactly. Dan looked at that per student cost and was like, too high. And it's, guys, it's high. And that's why I like seeing it compared to the other schools, because it is high. But when I look through here, I'm like, everything looks fine. The only thing we can do is raise the number of students that are here
Right.
to make it look better in that per pupil number. I mean, you can't change what's in this.
That number, the per pupil cost will no longer be in this budget. The state has waived that. Jim, you can speak to that. There's-
I do want to say though, I do have concern about us being like Andy last time, you're like, well, that's not a thing anymore. They're waiving it. Like that could come back to bite us.
Sure.
And so I don't want us to be like, well, they're not doing it this year, so.
I think it's useful to
Yeah.
even just compare us. It's a useful comparative number, even if there is no fine if you go over it.
I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
It was a statute that was passed last year,
Right.
and it actually didn't have to be in last year's warnings.
Correct.
So it's not something that I just said we don't have to do anymore.
I know, I
So-
know.
So if the legislator chooses to add that back in, obviously that's something they would have. to do,
Right, so, but I'm saying, I don't want us to think it's not a concern, because it could be a concern again in the future.
No, I think you always want to look at your per
Yeah.
pupil cost, what you're spending. Relatively speaking, between our 4 elementary schools, you're the second highest.
Mhm.
But you're within a few $1,000s of 2 of our other elementary schools,
So we're all very close.
except for 1.
Wrapped in this way.
Okay, because they're so small. See, and
Right,
that's the
so-
tricky
So,
part.
so to kind of put it in perspective, you know, so Central's at 23,000, Saxon's River's at 28,000, and Westminster's at 29,000. The middle school's at 22,000, and the high school's at 22,000.
Okay,
So-
so we're not.
We're
So-
at 29,000 now? Blimey.
Um,
Sorry.
I apologize, the high school's at 23,000, so let me. So the costs are relatively, you know, the same. And I think as we explained before, there are some things that Westminster values that maybe some of the other schools don't have, which is why your costs are, I could say, is probably higher. I mean, you have an extra teacher with Studio Y that other buildings don't have.
I mean, we also have 2 classes that have a total of 14 kids.
We have 2 what?
Classrooms that have a total of 14 kids.
Right, but that one teacher is gonna impact you're spreading that over your per pupil.
Mhm.
So that's increasing it. So that's one of those areas that you're increasing.
But they would cost less than a classroom teacher with 7 kids.
Yes, yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that those are the couple of things.
Yeah.
It's not like you're got every class with only 5 kids in it kind of thing, then that's where you be at.
I mean, I mean, I'm ready, I feel like I'm ready to move to approve the budget. I think Liz is careful. I trust, like, I don't think Liz is like throwing money around. It's like, I think she's got a good sense of what we need. I've made my concerns about like continuing with a very small class into 2nd grade with 2 teachers, but I think that I feel like it makes, I think it seems like it makes sense to me.
I have a couple of thoughts. One is a purely
Agree,
Right.
I was on mute, but I guess you,
Go ahead, Karen.
no, I was just in agreement with team, so I just want, you go ahead.
2 things. One is, shouldn't the 150,000, which we're going to give back to the voters, be a line item in this budget, or is that not the way it should be done?
Shows up in the revenue page of this budget, and it is there.
Right.
I
It's
see.
part of the
Okay.
budget
Okay.
package. Uh-huh.
Okay. Second thing is more philosophical. Apropos of the conversation that's just happened, I'm fearful of that the reason that we can continue with this budget to this high is that because the voters simply don't know what's in there, and that if they did know that we are $29,000 per student, and that the middle school is only 22 or whatever, that some people that might raise a lot of eyebrows, but people that it's fabulous that we can keep the increase to an apparent 1%. But if people actually were digging around in this and saw what the level of cost per students were, I suspect some of the voters would be a bit shocked. And obviously, we're not going to lead with that fact. But I think we should be prepared for people to say, wait a minute, particularly if enrollment continues to dip. And so that forces this apparent cost per student up. I think we should anticipate this in the next few years and think, what are we going to do? When people say, my God, you guys have got to put a stop to this, you've got to bring this down. What do we really value and need to keep, and what do we not need to keep?
Well, I
If
do
we-
think though, Charlie, if I can say, I mean, it seems to me that it's just like the last time we went before the town is, you know, if you only look at the money and not look at the quality of the education, then if we are not able to articulate, you know, from a budgetary point of view, the things that are, you know, that everyone has brought up, you know, from 22 from 22 to 29. I mean, I don't know what to say. It has to do with all of the qualities that we just listened to, and being able to articulate that to a town that I think there are many more educated, I mean, not educated, I don't mean that, more people that are interested in what's happening with their kids than if we're able to articulate it at the town meeting. That's all.
I agree.
Well, I hope you're right, but I guess we don't know one way or the other. So I think we've clearly got to be ready with a strong and cogent defense of the qualities that we represent and the values that we represent as a school. But then we've also got to defend that against, you know, the austerity of the moment. Is this the possible pushback, which is, yeah, that's all very well, guys, and we love it, but it's too expensive.
I
So
mean,
all I'm saying is just be ready for that, because it is an outlier.
I think the thing we have to think about too is that like there has been a huge amount of inflation in the past 4 years or whatever, right? And there was a story the other day that was like, where inflation is slowing, but people aren't happy with that. They actually want deflation, which is not going to happen. And so I think our school budget reflects inflation, and it can't there's deflation is not happening. If it does happen,
Right.
that's a problem, right, Jim? Deflation.
Yes,
So we want, like, there just has to be, it hurts, like, no one likes to look at the cost of homes right now. Or anything else, your grocery bill, but there's just been inflation, and so I think like the sticker price of 29,000 is shocking because it's so much higher than it was 4 years ago. But everything is so much higher than it was 4 years ago.
I mean, there are like big systemic things that we can do. But I don't know that we here can do them. Changing the way that we collectively bargain for insurance, you know, changing things that are, those are big budget line items that we can't do anything about.
right.
But I mean, that's why I suggested looking at 7th and 8th grade, maybe like for next year. But I guess, wait, can you say that one more time, Jim? So when we're looking at our per student budget, you take out our tuitions that we pay out for
Yes.
7th and 8th
We're
grade?
we're required to take all tuitions out. So any tuitions, and I don't mean special ed, but any tuitions that you're paying for regular ed, Compass, the 7th, 8th grade at Bellas Falls, any of those come out of the calculation. And it's just done by raw numbers of students,
K through 6.
K through 6.
So adding in, like just theoretically, if we added in, if we just total theoretically here, guys, if we did offer 7th and 8th grade.
So raw numbers, how many 7th and 8th graders do you have? Because I can do raw, you have 50, so you're talking maybe 2 classrooms, maybe, so if it's a minimum of 2 classrooms, you're now talking, you know, another $200,000 in teachers.
Yeah.
And then you would have to look at your PE and your art, and do you need, increase there? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, music, would you have to increase there?
Right.
Students in 7th and 8th grade have opportunities for extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
Would you then be offering those extracurricular activities?
Yeah.
If not, then, you know, if you're expecting them to access Bellas Falls, Bellas Falls is going to charge you to have them access. But just looking at overall, you'd be, you know, you could be looking at ballpark in here, 300
Yeah.
plus $1,000
Yeah.
of costs that you don't already have in there.
Yeah.
Um,
And how many kids are in this, like typically?
she said about
58 this
50
year.
kids, so I said 2 classrooms, 25,
Big.
that's big,
Yeah.
so.
But
so
that would be like dividing it by 200 students versus.
you can't, so I've worked at K-8 school, and that's how the board used to look at it, and they'd say, we have X number of kids, we need X number of teachers. When you get into 7th and 8th grade, you get much more into content
Yeah.
specialists, and so you can't
Right,
say, we're gonna have this classroom teacher, so that's why I'm saying your cost at a minimum would be around $300,000 to add in, so.
Well, how are we gonna get more kids in?
I would really like to call the question on this budget if we can. I honestly would. I mean, I think they're great. No, I honestly think they're great questions, but I would, I think, you know, Teen mentioned this, and so I would like to call the question if we can on this particular budget, and I would love to have this conversation for our next one, frankly.
You guys ready? You okay?
Yep.
All right. So there's a motion on the floor. Charlie made the motion to approve the budget in the amount of $5,366,000 for fiscal year 25. Karen, how do you vote?
I vote yes to approve.
Charlie?
Yes.
Okay. Margie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and me as well, so unanimously approve the budget. This conversation to be continued, you know, one of the other topics tonight, after we talk about tuition, the tuition that we announced that people would pay if they chose to come to this school, if they were gonna pay. We have to do that next. And then we'll also talk about town meeting and the articles that we'll take forward and how we'll need to be prepared, Charlie, for the kinds of questions and concerns that may be raised there as well. So, but the next topic for now, and all of this kind of fits together, is the tuition rate. Jim, explain to us what we need to do and why.
Okay, so the state has a form that we have to fill out, the board approves, the superintendent has to sign off on. And again, this tuition that, and we've got a sheet. Have you passed out the sheet?
Which one is it? I'm sorry.
Just a single page, Andy.
It's just
Sing-
one page, Andy. Oh, I've
Single
seen it.
page sheet.
Not yet.
That sheet, that's the
I only
tuition sheet.
have one.
I've seen
No,
that.
this is the tax rate calculation.
That's,
Okay,
isn't that?
there should be
He's showing
one
it.
with a paper clip with it, Andy.
That one.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank
I
you.
thought it was a different sheet.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't be there,
I was all
Andy.
color-coded, that's why I didn't look
So
the same.
was this sent out? Was this emailed?
No, well, I don't think this one was.
I'll send it to you right now, Karen.
Okay. If it, great.
We might have missed it.
Exactly what I wanted, yeah.
So with the tuition, the state wants this signed off by board and superintendent. And we have to get this in by January 15th. If you can't decide what to do for tuition and you say, we're going to hold off on this, it's going to be last year's tuition. That's what the state will authorize. So, I think as I mentioned to Cheryl, the 29,000 is taking all outside tuitions that we have to pay. The 29,000 is the maximum that you can charge. You can charge $1 if you want for every student that comes in, your choice. But typically, because I mean, you don't have tuition students coming in, I don't know why you wouldn't set it at the 29, but your choice. And
Right.
this just shows your cost. That's all it's doing, is appropriating your cost for somebody coming in that wants to be in the school.
Cheryl, if I just may add in, so just to give you an example, so Athens Grafton last year chose to set their announced tuition rate lower than their actual per pupil cost, with the hopes that would attract some families to potentially tuition their kids in. That didn't happen, or hasn't happened yet, but also, just so you're aware, it's not necessarily so that let's use Putney as an example, just because they're your neighbor. A family from Putney says, we want to send our kids to Westminster, and Wyndham Southeast, you can pay the tuition. Wyndham Southeast cannot pay that tuition, so that would be a tuition that parent would have to choose to pay out of pocket. However, and Keen, help me here, is it Vernon still is? They still have school choice down there? So if a family from Vernon said, we want to go to Westminster, Vernon gives them a voucher essentially.
Right.
To go anywhere.
Right?
They could bring that voucher here and they could attend here.
Yep.
Not here.
But, okay, so just for the middle school. So,
Just like us, they're like us.
But if there was a town that didn't have a K-6 school,
Like Wyndham right now.
like Wyndham, yeah, thank you, that's a, yeah, so then they could choose to come.
Mhm.
So,
And you're saying that if we set it lower, it would attract some of those people?
no, I'm saying that was the rationale that Athens Grafton used.
And it didn't come to fruition.
No, because you're asking, again, only parents who could pay out of pocket, unless for some reason, like Wyndham, their town didn't have a K-6
Right.
affiliated with any K-6 program, and they had school choice, they could bring that voucher and come here.
So what's your recommendation? Like, what are you saying?
So I wasn't, I was just offering that when it was brought up, you could set, Jim was saying you could set it lower. I was just saying that was the rationale that another
For why
district
they did it.
used.
Uh-huh.
But I don't.
But it didn't work.
I don't see any benefit from setting a lower,
No, I think we should charge.
so that, if you're asking, I'm right.
Agreed.
Yeah. I went to the state website today to look at the announced tuitions. This is from last year. They will change as soon as all of this comes in. And Rockingham is listed as 21,000 for the elementary tuition, which is what we're paying them right now for 7th to 8th graders. Their secondary tuition is that amount as well. Westminster was listed as 17,850, and Wyndham, Athens Grafton was listed as 15,000.
Yeah,
Right. That's correct.
The state website right now.
Yep.
This is not something that is typically exercised. We don't have people paying tuition to come in. What are the implications for the state overall? I mean, it's like Charlie looked through this state listing and saw us already as an outlier at a higher tuition rate than most. Part of me wonders about just setting it at 21,000. If we set it at 29, that is accurate at the moment. What are the pros and cons?
I just want to weigh in and say, for me, local people are paying $29,000 for their students, for their kids that they're sending to your school. And the differential for me is the quality. And there's difference of qualities. I mean, if you went up north and saw some of the elementary schools, substantial quality differences in what they're producing in students' achievements and what they're getting for their dollars they're spending. I just think you should feel pretty proud of what you're producing in your school. And the 29,000, hurrah, you're achieving success.
May I ask a question on this sheet, though? Am I reading this correctly, that Athens Grafton is 41,000?
Yes, you are.
So
Oh, well.
we're fairly reasonable.
Yeah, but Karen, we cannot compare ourselves to Athens Grafton. They are so outside of the norm. Like that is not, it's because they have like 45 kids. They're just
32.
No,
32.
I understand this. I'm just wanting to say, when we look across the board, right?
Our district.
Yes, and if we look at Saxon's River, I'm just saying, which is 28, and we're 29, we're one, you know what I mean? It feels reasonable to me, that's all I want.
Yeah, I think it is.
So I'd like to entertain a motion that we set the tuition rate at a certain figure. Somebody make a motion, please.
I so move.
No, we have to make the motion. What figure? I'll make a motion that we set the tuition at $29,000.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor of setting the tuition rate at 29,000, and that would be signed off by the superintendent and transmitted to the state of Vermont.
Yes.
All those in favor? Charlie, I need to do roll call because you're virtual. So Karen,
Yes.
okay, Charlie?
Yes.
Yes. Team?
Aye.
Okay. All righty, passed. All right. And with that, Jim, I know you had other things you probably wanted to talk about in terms of the finance report. Is there anything else you want to bring to our attention tonight?
Just quickly on the financial report, I still, when I look at, an estimated guess for the year, because we're halfway through, I think you're going to end up 200,000 to the good at the end of the year. And that's a projection for surpluses coming into June. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Jim right now? I've gone through all of this in detail, and thank you, Jim, very much. If not, we'll go, we'll let you say good evening, and we'll move to the plans for town meeting.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.
All righty, in preparation for town meeting, I drafted a letter today that I sent out to you guys, that I'd like you to take a look at. And, you know, I think, what we need to do, we need to get to the town of Westminster the budget that we approved tonight, Liz's letter from the principal, a letter from the board, our projected pupil count, which we've given them every year, and Liz has an updated version of that. I thought we should include, and I referenced it in the letter, our vision and goals and mission statement, vision, that includes your visual. Yeah, so I've got that assembled as well. Those things need to go to the town next week in order to meet their deadline for printing the town report. But in addition to that, my suggestion to us is that we do frequently ask questions like we did last year, so that we anticipate the questions from the public around the money stuff in particular. And in the articles, separate from the budget, we need to address the $500-some thousand in surplus that we have, that I outlined in the letter as well. This is the first time I can remember this kind of surplus coming from the SU. The more than 200,000 from the SU, and then we have another couple 100,000 from Westminster, from the now audited, it's still preliminary, but audited figures. And you saw my thinking is that we should propose to the voters that 100,000 of that nearly 500,000 surplus be used to reduce next year's budget, the 26 budget, not this one. This is the one we're taking it down by 150,000. And a year ago, we brought it down by 300,000. So you think, you know, our surpluses are proportionately smaller. And it just seems right to me, especially with all the uncertainty in the state right now. More numbers for you guys, but it's in the letter. The fact that the state is projecting an 18.5% increase in tax rates around the state. They're projecting that most school districts are going to be at a higher rate of increase than we're proposing at 4%. And then ours will be brought down to 1% based on using the 150,000 to bring it down. I also think that we should continue to build up the capital reserve fund. And so we take that to the voters. And so my suggestion really is 100,000 to bring down the next year's budget, not the one we're taking now, but the one a year from now, the 26 budget we bring down by 100,000, and the remaining 300 some whatever thousand that is that we put into our existing reserve fund that's used for energy efficiency, security, capital improvements. And Liz, as we looked at the wonderful reports that Andy commissioned for both the West building and this building, the single biggest ticket item is the $300,000+ for the parking lots. When you talked earlier today about a meeting with Steve Horton and Bill today, is there ESSER money to help with the parking lot or no? I didn't think so.
When you say the parking lot, you're talking about the
I'm
drainage?
talking about the drainage, and we looked at options that didn't involve repaving to fix the drainage.
It's gonna cost a lot to fix that issue. That is
Right.
a problem.
So you can, we're in a, I just think we're doing our best to be really frugal and wise with the surplus monies that we've accumulated. And I'm really hoping that we can successfully prevent a situation where we have to go to the voters for something major. And by looking at all of this, it's making sense to me. We get solar installed where, we figured out we better put a new roof on since that one's 20 years old. We're paying for that out of the reserve money. But again, you were able to use ESSER monies to the level of $400,000 with a new roof in Westminster and the repaired roof here, not counting the gym. So, all of this, Charlie, goes into our conversation with the voters. They're, then of course, the whole business about last year was 12.7% increase in health insurance, and this year 16.4. So I think we're on solid ground right now when we propose all of this to folks. We absolutely have to look at our costs and our per pupil costs. Although I fully appreciate what Jim said about the quality, we're vulnerable when we still have kids not scoring as well, in addition to everything else. I see that. Right, it's going on. But anyway.
Sure.
But Cheryl, am I not still, when I'm looking at the letter, it said that the increase is going to be about 1%,
It'll be
given
1%.
what you said. Yeah.
That's right. Our budget, that's what we're proposing based on using surplus monies plus a frugal budget.
Yeah. That's all.
I have a question, Cheryl. I know it's probably not possible to have a number in your mind, but we've talked about this thing called the reserve fund. So we put money in the reserve fund to do the solar installations and to do various other things. And now we're going to put some more money into this reserve fund. Have you any idea, when we've paid for all the things we've already decided to do, what will be left in this quote unquote reserve fund before we add a new bunch to it?
I think we're running close. The solar, because there's been a delay with it, plus the cost of the roof. We had $770,000 in that budget. The solar was to be 400,000. It's probably going to be more. We've added 150 or so thousand for the gym roof. So we're not going to have a huge amount of excess. And now we've got projected $300,000 cost for a parking lot and driveway, which is why I'm saying let's put that this year's surplus into that.
I see. So when we go to the voters, we can say we had a reserve fund which we spent as instructed on the solar panels and on the securing of the roofs and et cetera, et cetera. Now we have a new problem, which is this parking lot, and we want to put this money aside to make sure we take care of that and any other unforeseen circumstances that arise. So we've got specific uses in mind for this reserve fund. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct. And we'll outline all of that in even more detail in our FAQ, our frequently asked questions for the town meeting.
I liked what you said here and here about avoiding having to take out a bond. That's
Avoiding what?
Right, a bond.
Bond,
And
yes.
mind that the gym, the 20-year gym bond will be paid off in 2026. So we'll be, that'll be another $100,000 that we're not spending every year, which is a good thing.
So Cheryl, if I could just make, so one of the things we always advise is, just as what you're doing, is taking some of your surplus to offset taxes in a downward trend, because you don't want to have those ups and down spikes for your taxpayers. And Jim and I have talked at length, and under, he's not here, so I can embarrass him. I mean, under the work he has done for us, we're anticipating we're not going to be giving back big surpluses in the future.
Right.
And that's a lot of credit to him of helping us understand where our budgets are and getting them in line so that we're not giving you these huge surpluses. And that's good. I know it's nice to have the surpluses, but we shouldn't be taking that money up front. And so we anticipate that surpluses are going to go down. And so, again, looking at how you can slowly kind of reduce that offset you're using in the future is good. And then taking whatever else you have and putting it in a rainy day fund for capital improvements is always our recommendation, because you never know what's going to happen. And, if you have something big happen, I don't want to say it because I don't jinx it, right? But like
The
you
parking
want
lot.
you want to be able to access, I'm thinking even something that's more immediate.
No, don't say.
Parking lot kind
Yeah,
of
let's
thing.
not talk about
And,
That's what I'm saying.
you know, and so having that, I think, is always a smart, way of doing it, and not earmarking it for a specific project. It gives future boards some flexibility to address some issues that we're not even anticipating at this time.
Absolutely.
Kind of side note, did we ever hear what the state tuition rate was?
There will be a new one. I read to you what's on the website now.
Oh,
The state, I don't think the state tuition rate gets decided until everyone's tuition.
Right,
rate,
so we all,
it uses our.
it will adjust,
Okay, I gotcha.
potentially go up.
Yeah.
Based on what we anticipate everyone.
I got you. Okay.
So what I think we need to take action on now, if you could, give the chair, the authority to finish the board letter, submit that on our behalf. I will verify the numbers yet again, but if the letter is overall good in concept, if you give me that authority, then I'll finish it. And as I say, check the numbers and submit it. That's one motion I think I'd like to ask for.
Okay, can I ask for one little thing in here?
Sure.
I liked it last year when we talked about using surplus money in a way that offsets future cost.
Okay.
I thought that was a good, like, line of thinking that I think should go at this.
Okay, so edit it to make sure that's even clear. Okay,
But yes, let's entertain the motion.
okay. Motion to approve submitting the board letter to the town of Westminster.
I've never done this, guys.
Yay.
Okay, how do I do it?
I would like to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to give Cheryl the authority to turn this in to finish it up and turn it into whoever you turn it into.
The town of
Town.
Westminster. All right, there's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? All right, no more discussion. How do you vote, Karen?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Margie?
Yes.
All right, T?
Yes, thank you for doing it.
You bet.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Beautiful letter,
Uh,
thank you.
hmm?
It's a beautiful letter.
Oh, good, thank you. And then I think separate from that, give the chair authority to develop the articles for action at town meeting. I'll give you.
I'd like to make a motion to the chair authority to develop the articles for motion at town meeting.
Yikes.
Okay. And the article to include the proposed budget, which we've approved tonight, just in the same format they require of us. With two specific items to be included in the articles. One, a $100,000 offset to 2026 fiscal year budget for the taxpayers. And secondly, to use the remainder of the new surplus monies to go to the capital reserve fund.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Pretty simpler than last year's.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Who made
think,
that motion?
Me,
I think Teen did.
Okay, great.
Charlie, you're really behind tonight.
I'm 6 hours behind you guys. Come on.
Right, wow.
Later, yes. All right, so how do you vote? That motion's on the floor, Karen?
Yes. Thank you so much, Cheryl, honestly.
Charlie?
Aye, yes. See,
Thank
senora.
you. Margie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So I think that's mostly it for town meeting. We have to submit all these documents. And I think that's the thing you need to take action on. And then beyond that, I'll begin a draft for us of the FAQ, but we don't need that until quite a bit closer to the time. We'll also need to host an informational meeting like we did before, so we should find a date for that and have it not be the weekend next to a holiday, spring break. We got some criticism from
Yeah.
one of our townspeople. We'll always get it.
Just make it right during a snowstorm.
No,
I'm kidding.
All right, I think we're ready for director's comments, you guys. Karen.
I really appreciated the amount of people's knowledge and good questions around the budget and also the clarification from Andy and about the tuition and so forth. So thank you for the meeting, and I look forward to our next one.
Enjoy Ecuador. Charlie?
I really appreciated hearing from the teachers, hearing about their work on literacy. Didn't understand it all, but glad to have this happening. I'm glad they understand it. They know where they're going and they've got a plan. Very encouraging. Ditto on the budget. Thank you, Karen, Cheryl, for the work you obviously put in behind the scenes on this. And I'm great. Thank you for the miracle of technology that I can join you from the other side of the world.
Oh, to Karen and Charlie both, have a glorious time, and thank you so much for joining us remotely. It's really above and beyond and much appreciated. Yeah. Margie.
Oh, thank you.
I liked hearing from the, it was like 80%. That's really good. And they're doing a great job. Really, anecdotally, Junie comes home and like repeats the lessons that she was like, Ivan, let's do something, you know, some play thing. And then she's like, who's your favorite character? And Ivan's like, you know, he says, and she's like, let's draw a picture of that and think if we can write a story about it. She's like, I can see her. I can see that she's repeating this instructional kind of like aid that they do this in school. And so I can see, and it's getting through, and then she's repeating it. So I love it. So Ivan will be prepared, maybe.
Yeah.
Or not. Yeah, they're doing a good job. They really are. They really are.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated the IoT team or the instructional leadership team coming. It's a lot of work. And I really liked the discussion around how they stepped back and really brought it back to the staff, which I think is great. And the commitment you made to it. So thank you. I'm excited for the winter concert.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
I'm excited for winter sports.
Me too.
Yeah, thanks. That's a lot of work. So thank you for doing it.
Nothing more from me, just thanks. And thank you, Andy, as ever, for being here. Appreciate it. All right, everybody, we are adjourned at 7:34.
7:30.
Right.
Thanks.
Buenas noches, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.